I've spent 2 years building AI automation workflows, and I've distilled everything into a 5-step process that lets you build literally anything using no-code tools. If you've been watching tutorials for months but still haven't made real money, or if you're passionate about solving a problem but are struggling to build the automations, this video covers the complete system from brainstorming to debugging. And at the end, as a bonus, I'm also showing you how to position what you build and sell it to clients. Everything you need in one video. Let's get into it. If you're already familiar with no-code tools, you must have found yourself in this position. Please don't give me another error, and you might be practically begging your computer. If you haven't, at least I have when I was initially starting. Because it was breaking so much and it involved so much debugging that I used to just push everything to AI and expect it to solve, but nothing used to work. So today I have a unique approach, and this is the best approach I've got in the past 2 years, and it's always worked for me and it definitely will work for you. That is, we are going to approach building an AI workflow like we build a skyscraper. So here's the game plan, the 5-step process that I mentioned at the start of this video. The first is going to be brainstorming what you're actually going to build, and this is going to be the blueprint of our building. And then we move on to mapping out how it flows. This is the architecture. Third is we pick our materials. Here is where we choose our services. What services should be present in our AI workflow to make the magic happen. And fourth is to build it piece by piece. And this involves the construction. And fifth is the most important. The building that you actually build, the workflow that you actually build sustains for a really long time without any major problems. We are going to go through all the 5 steps in detail, and by the end you'll know exactly how to build automations for yourself that are robust and clients trust you with their money. Let's get into it. So brainstorming. What are you actually building? So this is nothing but what are we solving session. Now grab a piece of paper. Ask yourself or clients these questions. What's the trigger? A trigger is nothing but something that kicks off the entire workflow. And this can be a form submission, a payment, an email. For example, you want to build a chatbot that essentially replies to all your emails. So the first trigger would be an email coming into your email account. So what needs to happen after the trigger? Some of you might include an AI agent, or some of you might include anything else. But the whole point is to list everything and even the obvious stuff. Third, what's the end result? Where is it going to end? What is our desired outcome? Now, for the email response, my desired outcome, it would be something like crafting a reply with almost 90% my writing style. So to understand this, let's take an example. Let's take an online course workflow. The trigger in this would be when a student buys your course. Next is the payment gets processed and the student gets added to the email list. The course access gets granted, and after that a welcome email would be sent, and then the admin gets notified that the student has signed up and he's got access to the course, and in the end the data gets logged into a spreadsheet because you want to keep everything nice and clean. But also if the payment doesn't get processed, an email is sent to the student and the admin gets notified. What's the end result? The end result is that the student can access the course and the admin knows about the sale and what's happening. You see what we did there? We mapped out the entire process without even starting to build. This clarity in your mind will make the build so much easier. That's why brainstorming is the first step. I mean, it might be obvious to you, and people might get ignorant saying that why the fuck should I brainstorm? I know all the tools, I know all the nodes, I'm just gonna connect everything and make it work. Trust me, when something breaks, or trust me, if you want to reduce your build time, do not miss this step. If you want to incorporate AI in your brainstorming process, I would suggest you use a simple prompt like this. You can go for something like, hey, I'm building an automation using no-code tools such as n8nmake.com for the need. Here, let's take an example of online course sales. And here's what I mapped out. So essentially here you mention the process and then you ask the AI, is there a way I can enhance the process? What am I missing and what could go wrong? Let's see this prompt in action. And I have enhanced this prompt by using the word beginner to keep everything nice and simple. And depending on how advanced you are in this whole no-code automation, you can replace this with whatever. Or if you're pretty advanced and if you're played around with stuff, you can just leave it like that. So I'm just going to hit enter and let's wait for the response. And this took 14 seconds to generate an answer. And what does the answer contain? Let's see. Minimal reliable flow. Start here. It's giving you a flow chart for your workflow. Webhook, receive payment succeeded, function, all right. Postgres Superbase insert. This is RAG. Switch, HTTP request, email node, nice upgrade if that pays off quickly. Double opt-in, very good. Onboarding sequences, account email separation. You see, it has given you so many things to brainstorm and to think about in just 14 seconds. Put that into perspective. Think about the scale. If you thought about this would probably take you half an hour, 2 hours, to maybe even 2-3 hours. But this just gave you so much in 14 seconds. And this is exactly why I urge you to use AI in your brainstorming. The next is the flowchart. Now you have full clarity based on what you're going to build. Second is to structure the clarity in the form of a flowchart. And this is not optional. Think of it like this. Would you try to build an IKEA furniture without actually looking at the instructions? Maybe, but would it turn out to be that good? Probably not, and you would waste a ton of your time. A flowchart is your instruction manual for the automation you're about to build. You don't need a fancy software. I myself use an iPad or something like Excalibur or Canva. To give you an idea, here's a flowchart example I built for my lead research tool. So for the trigger, I wanted a LinkedIn URL. And I wanted to enter the LinkedIn URL using something like a chatbot, a form, a basic text window, or Telegram. Yes, you can connect Telegram to N8N pretty easily. And after I enter the URL, the next step would be to scrape the profile. And I use AP files, LinkedIn profile scraper to do this. And after that, I want this information, whatever I get from the scraper, to be logged into Google Sheets. So essentially here, the name, the email, the phone number, if found, everything would be stored in the Google Sheet. And now that I have each row containing the information that I want, I use an enrichment tool. And for this, I often use Perplexity to find out more about the company, because Perplexity uses citations to come up with the answer. Enrichment happens in this step. And in the next step, I want to basically send an email to myself or a draft to myself, summarizing this prospect and scoring the prospect on a scale of 1 to 10. So as you can see, the end trigger would be a telegram or an email. And this is an example flowchart. This just took me 5 minutes to make. And in this 5 minutes, I got the exact clarity. Once I go to my no-code platform, I know what I want to build, how I want it to look. And that's exactly why we brainstorm and we draw a flowchart. You need a wireframe, you need a flowchart to understand how your data is flowing. If you do these two, this takes hardly any time. Trust me, you can do these two under 10 minutes. Okay, initially it might take you 20 minutes, but the 20 minutes will save you a ton of headache. And as you improve, as you go, this whole process, these two steps, brainstorming and flowchart, would take you under 5 minutes. And it is going to save a lot of your time and a lot of your headaches. And note, your flowchart should be in such a way that someone who's never looked at automation before knows what you're trying to build just by looking at your flowchart. I wouldn't say keep it extremely detail oriented, but keep it as detailed as possible and make it quick, because we don't want to waste any time. But the whole process is for you to understand how your data flows, what you want to happen next, and how is your workflow going to start and how is it going to end. That's it. Now let's move on to picking your platform. There are 3 major players in this. I'm not even going to make a whole fuss about it. It's Make.com, Zapier, and N8N. There's no best number one platform. I have a personal preference, but you should choose what's best for your situation. Like for example, if you want to go from point A to point B, you can do it a number of ways, right? It's not a right way. The goal is to get from point A to point B. If it's one person, simple, you'll take a bike. If it's a group of friends, you would take a car. And if it's around more than 20, 30, or even 50 people, you would go by something like a bus, right? So it depends on your needs. And let's take a look at the first platform, N8N. This is the most popular. If no-code platforms have risen like this, it's only because of this. So the setup takes around 1-2 hours and it has around 400 plus integrations. And the best part about this, and this is a choice and this is the go-to for most of the AI automators out there, is because you have an option to host it for free. Yeah, you heard me right. For free. This is a community edition. And if you go for a platform like Render or even Hostinger, you can easily just pay around $20 a month and you can have so many workflows versus their native cloud, which is around $20 a month and it offers 2,500 executions. Also, you should know that execution for the N8N team is your entire workflow's execution. So for example, you have a 5-step automation and you run the entire automation That is one execution compared to make, where for each node in the workflow, it's considered to be one execution. So a 5-step automation in N8N would be one execution, whereas in make, it would be 5 executions. That said, use N8N when you're technical, processing high volume, need data privacy, or building complex AI workflows. See, listen, I get the catch. It's free, but there's a little bit of a learning curve. And once you master this learning curve, trust me, this is the best platform. And this, simply put, is my preferred platform. This is what I use to build any automation I have. But it might not be the best for you. So, can you figure out the basic code when you look at it? Can you Google error messages and troubleshoot? And are you comfortable with setting up instructions that involve a command terminal? If your answer is no to these questions, then you should look at something like make.com or Zapier. But amongst make.com and Zapier, which one do I prefer? Let's see. Make.com, the visual builder. The first automation can happen in about half an hour to an hour, and it has 2000 plus integrations, which is a big booster because in N8N it has only 400 plus integrations. So if you want to integrate with other platforms that are not natively in N8N, you have to use something like HTTP request or a webhook. And if you're not comfortable with these two in the beginning, and if you just want to build out workflows like this without learning HTTP or webhooks, and you just want to get into building, I would suggest you take make.com. And if you want even more easier, then Zapier. But first, let's look at make. Here, the free is 1000 operations per month. The course starts at $9 a month with 10,000 operations. Like I said, the executions work different here. Executing one node, it's considered to be one operation. So when you use make.com, when you're processing thousands of operations and you want visual workflows, and if your budget really matters, then I suggest you go for something like N8N and take the self-hosted version. But the advantage with this is a visual builder, right? It's very interactive to use. Then something breaks, you can see it and you can see the data flowing with each other, and the integrations are pretty easy to do in make.com, but I don't like the pricing. And usually whatever I build is a little bit on the complex side. So my go-to has always been N8N. But I've also played with make.com. So if I have to post on any social media platforms or automate my posting on Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter, I use make.com. Last, Zapier. And this is the integration beast. Anything that you probably want to automate, Zapier has it. And this is the easiest platform in which you can build workflows. So the first automation can literally be done in 10 minutes. Why? Because it has over 6,000 native app integrations. But here's the catch. The free plan only has 100 tasks a month. And it gets expensive real fast. So the starter is at $20 a month for 750 tasks, and the professional is $50 a month for 2,000 tasks. So who's it ideal for? If you want an automation today, if you don't want to break your head, and if you want to spend the least amount of time to get the most, then go for Zapier if you value time more than money. Here's the thing. The core proposition of these no-code tools is to make life easier for you, is to make automations easier, and all three platforms do the same. But at the end of the day, it comes to pricing and how much time you're willing to spend in actually learning what's in these platforms and learning basic concepts in coding. So let's take an e-commerce automation processing. Let's say they process around 100 orders a day, and that's about 3,000 orders a month. And let's say the company has around 8 steps to complete the order, A to Z. In Zapier, that would be around 24,000 tasks a month, and that would cost you around $500 to $700 a month. Yeah. Anyways, make.com also the same, 24,000 operations a month, and it would cost around $150 to $200 a month. Still a bomb. N8N Cloud with 3,000 executions, because like I said, the execution between N8N and Make and Zapier varies a lot. Zapier and Make charge for each node's execution, whereas N8N charge for the entire workflow's execution. So it's slightly cheaper than N8N, which is around $55 a month, but the best is a self-hosted version. I myself am using the self-hosted version, and I'm doing it using Render. And click the link in the Psych. I do not have any links in the description below because I don't have an affiliate program. Yes, I would get a kickback, but the whole point of these videos is to give you value fast. And I'm on this YouTube stint where I'm just posting videos constantly. I don't want to do that. If you want to pick a platform, pick it up, choose, play around with it. So the same automation is in the range of $20 to $700 depending on the platform of your choice. And to make your eyes wide even more, That's $8,160 a year worth of difference. Now you see why the decision matters. Well, if you ask me, it's simple. Just go for the N8N self-hosted version. Spend a little bit of time in learning basic concepts such as webhook, HTTP requests, and they also have a beginner course. Take that as well. Helps a lot. So now we have covered brainstorming, now we build a flowchart, and we're in front of the platform in which we build automations. So let's build the actual construction. Most people screw this up. Well, not if you've done these 3 steps. If you do these 3 steps, you're in a pretty good area. So here's where most people screw up. They try to build the entire thing at once. Even though you put a flowchart, looking at your flowchart, you might be like, you know what, I'm just going to build this entire thing out. But if you do that, you are going to solve problems for no reason. So here's a modular build method. What is modular build method? I want you to build and test in chunks. So the first chunk could be the trigger and 2 nodes after that. It can be a form, webhook, email, etc. And test it with fake data and make sure it actually triggers and it pulls in information. So essentially, if your workflows look like this, you can test this step, which is trigger plus 2 nodes, and then you can test this step, and then you can test this step. So essentially what you do is you test this step first, and if everything works good here, then you move on to this step, and in the end, you go to this step. So what happens by this is, when something breaks, you will know exactly which piece broke because you're already familiar with the errors that it can cause. But if you build everything at once and it breaks, you have no idea where the problem is. Like I mentioned, test in chunks. But how do you test? Use 3 types of data. Use normal data, use weird data, and wrong data. Normal data is something like fill the form absolutely correctly. The second would be weird. So instead of an email, enter your phone number and see what happens. Third is completely wrong. Go haywire. Instead of number, put email. Instead of email, put in special characters. Like, just mess it up entirely and see what type of output you get. And this is how you build stuff that actually doesn't break in production. Now you might be asking, Hemant, can't I just use AI to build this? So the next point is how to use AI the right way. People use AI wrong. They literally treat it like Google. They ask vague questions and get vague answers. Like I mentioned in the first section of this video, garbage in, garbage out. But how to actually get useful information from the AI? How to prompt AI to get the best out of it? This is the framework you use. It's called the CoStar framework. So the whole point of using this framework is to give a good context. If you want your AI to give you the output that you want, and if you want AI to actually help you, give it proper context. So here's an example prompt. Now I'm not going to read the entire prompt, but as you can see, it has a context, it has objectives, it has the output format, desired output, how you want the output to be structured, and the style and the tone that you're going for. So why should you prompt properly? It's because you want AI to give you exactly what you need. AI should give information according to your problem, your context. So you give it the error message, you explain what you're trying to do, and you show what you have already done and what's not worked. And now the AI can actually help you instead of making guesswork. And the golden rule, the better your question, the better the answer. Simple, garbage in, garbage out. The next point is why most of you are actually here. Debugging. When things break, how do you fix it? This is where most of the people quit. To make debugging extremely easy, you set an early warning system. So here I want you to set up a simple error handler. If anything fails, send me a message on Slack or email me with what broke, when it broke, and what does the message say. And also track your success. Track how many times your automation runs successfully versus how many times it fails. If failures suddenly spike, something's wrong, obviously. But this is what you should do. This is the early warning system. So now let's actually get into debugging. What if something breaks? So the first, if you're a beginner, is to not panic, right? This is not going to be you by the end of the video. So read the error message first before you panic and read it carefully. It might be basic stuff like invalid credential, which means your login has expired, rate limit exceeded, you're making too many requests, field email is required, you're not sending the email field. 90% of these errors are obvious if you actually read them. So instead of pressing hit or instead of pressing execute and seeing everything go wrong and panicking, just see what the error is. I mean, you're obviously going to do that, but you should not look at it from a point of panic. You should look at it from the point of, oh, I made a mistake. How do I solve it? So step 2, check what you changed. Did you change something? So, for example, recently I was using ChatGPT to create images for my social media posting, but now I switched to Nano Banana because I prefer it and I'm getting more accurate results using Nano Banana for my needs. So, when I switched, it didn't work and it took 1 hour of debugging because the structure, the prompting was completely different. So, keep tabs of what's changed. Third is to test each piece. Turn off everything except the first step and go step by step. Go node from node. Pull on the node, pin the data. Works, cool. Next one. Works, pin it. Works, pin it. Works, pin it. Go step by step until you find what breaks. So how do you use AI? You might be tempted to use AI, right? Something goes wrong, you don't know what it is. AI. But how do you prompt it? How do you give it instructions and how do you give it context in such a way that it gives you what you want? So the first is to use the co-star method mentioned, plus give it proper context and explain the situation. So giving proper context means you explain the situation well, you upload the workflow if possible, and also post the error message. So what happens is the quality of your query raises. So the quality of the answer is also going to raise. And this might not give you the answer what you want the first time, but it might give you the second or third time. This saves time. And you also add retry logic to the nodes that actually matter. What matters? So I want you to add retry nodes to the temporary failures like network timeouts, API rate limits, and service temporarily unavailable. Never use retry for something like wrong credentials, missing fields, and insufficient permissions because you're creating errors for no reason. You've come to the last section of this video. And the last section of this video is very important because if you've thought that you can proceed with no-code automation without learning coding, you're wrong. So answering the age-old question, should you learn coding? Yes, but it's not for the reason you think it is. Here's what Sam Altman said. He said that AI is already writing over 50% of the world's code. But you might wonder, why should I learn coding? It's to not write code anymore, but to understand code. It's not for you to become a coder, it's to become more of an architect. So what you actually need to learn. Spend a weekend learning the basic stuff like variables, functions, if statements. So a variable is nothing but a box that holds information. For example, customer email equals john@example.com. So the variable customer email stores this information. Function is nothing that actions that do something. For example, send email, customer email means an email to this address, right? This customer email function sends it. And if statements, these are nothing but decision points. If payment successful, send email, else send alert. Basic stuff like this. And for this, you don't need to be a programmer. You just need to not be scared of code when you see it, and you need to be comfortable with handling code. How do you learn code, right? Please don't pay for courses and please don't pay any money. This is the free and the most high quality education you can get. So the first is, I think, 100 Days of Code or 100 Days of Python by Harry. This is best. Don't go for the Udemy edition because it's absolutely free on YouTube. And after this, you can go for something like Harvard's CS50 Python. So you can either choose this or this. And then after this, if you want to end it, you can choose Harvard CS50X. All these three are available for free, and all these three are extremely high quality, especially the course taught from Harvard. It's taught by one of the best computer teachers I've ever had the grace of learning from. That's it. We have come to the end of this video. And I promised you initially how to sell and package your AI automations to clients. If you want to make money doing this, and if you have the dream picture of you making a ton of money, this is how you sell. And this is applicable to any product, including your automation services as well. So how do you sell your automations? Do not go for one-off trade. Don't be like, hey, listen, give me X amount and I'll build you X workflow. What happens if you do this is it becomes transactional. And here you're not proposing the value. Here you're just saying it's essentially become a barter system, right? Here's X for Y and you just exchange X and Y. But the amount of money you make from this will also be very less. But if you want to command premium prices, go for something like value bundling. And if you don't know what value bundling is, if you wish to gain knowledge on value bundling, watch this video that I've pinned in the description. And also I'm going to bring another YouTube video which is going to go in depth in value bundling. Subscribe for that as well. How do you bundle it? The value bundling is you selling a solution and you solve a problem and then you show the benefit. What does this mean? Well, this means that instead of saying, hey, look at this automation. This has 50 workflows. It can take your leads. It'll make it better. It'll enrich them. It'll follow up automatically. So buy it. Don't do that. Instead, go for something like you're wasting 7 to 12 hours a week chasing leads when you're not even able to convert them. I've built a system where you barely need to spend an hour per week, but your conversions increase by 20% at least. So what is the difference between the first and the second one? In the first, you're selling the features. In the second, you're selling the benefit. You're selling the dream outcome. Don't sell your AI solution. Don't sell what you're offering. Sell what your offering does for them. Sell the benefit. Sell the dream outcome. And do it authentically. Don't be too salesy. How do you go about doing this? The first is to conduct research. If you're planning to sell automations, go to a field like, let's say, medical, and see what are the headaches that people faced. Connect with people on LinkedIn or just go to Reddit and get your information from it. So essentially is for you to find out what are the pain points that the medical industry is facing. So it can be something like patient handling. And now you come and now you follow the 5-step process I've given you. And by using this 5-step process, you will be able to build a system, right? So a system which solves the headache. And then you position this headache as a benefit. But the whole point is for you to conduct the research, find the pain point, and build a proper, robust system and solve a headache, position the benefit, and sell it to the client. I'm not even scratched the surface by telling you how to sell a system, but if you follow this, you're pretty good to get your first 3 clients. If you wanted to go in depth and teach you how to actually get those high leverage, high value clients, consider subscribing and I'll bring it out soon. Guys, the whole point of this video was to give you insane value. And this is my 2 years worth of learning in one video. In the description, I have 0 affiliate links. So feel free to explore whatever platform you want and I wish you the best. Thanks for watching. Please consider subscribing because I'm bringing in more high value content like this. Blackout.